Hi, everyone. I'm Ed, and I'm Chief Executive of Old Gold Racing. Just one or two little sort of parish announcements. Please do ask questions in the chat on the right, and we'll do our best to answer at least some of them towards the end of this. My role is basically to say thank you to everyone. So firstly, thank you very much to the panel. If you haven't spotted who the mystery guest is, it's Nicky Henderson next to his lovely bottle of Glengoyne whiskey, which I can thoroughly recommend. I find it very Moorish. I'd also very much like to thank Jane Mangan for joining us again, Paul Nichols for joining us again, and Lucinda Russell and Peter Scudamore for joining us. And they're going to be wonderfully corralled by the wonderful Francesca Kamani. So you guys and girls, thank you very, very much for doing this with us again, or for the first time. I'd like to thank JM Finn, who sponsored this evening. I'm delighted that Simon Tufnell, who's one of the directors of JM Finn, is watching us. Hi, Simon, and a whole bunch of your crew, which is really, really nice to see you, colleagues, clients, the rest of it. And also the whole team at Old Gold Racing. There's a lot of guys behind the scenes here, some of whom, while you've been doing the practice, you'll have heard from. So thank you very much. If you're not on course, have a great Cheltenham Festival anyway. Tune into ITV Racing, although Cheska, I don't think you're going to be there. You're a foot soldier. You're going to be one of us, aren't you, Cheltenham?
I am. Yeah. I'm lucky enough this year to actually go as a spectator. So I'm going to go on Tuesday and on Wednesday, and it's going to be great just actually getting to enjoy it. And even actually see a race out the front for probably the first time ever at a Cheltenham Festival, which will be a real novelty. But I can't wait. I can't actually believe it's a week tomorrow. I mean, for all of you lot, I'm sure it feels like it's all getting closer and closer by the minute. And it's obviously crucial stages for keeping the horses all in good order as we get ever closer. I was wondering actually how many previews has everybody done, and in like fingers. I've only done one so far.
3.
Only one. Okay, so hopefully there's not too much preview fatigue here, because we want to have high energy and lots of excitement for looking ahead to these brilliant races next week. And what a brilliant panel we've got, by the way, because I don't think there are many previews that have got a more knowledgeable panel or a better credentialed team of trainers. And of course, Jane, our Irish expert as well. Thanks for joining us again, Jane. That's really, really good of you. Lots has been happening in your world as well. I see glamorous trips to Saudi Arabia. You seem to be getting quite into the fashion and turning into a bit of a diva, I see from your Instagram. What's that about?
Trying to keep up with you. I hear that's where the big bucks are, but I had a little recess in the oasis of a desert for a week, and that should have me ripe and ready for Cheltenham. If I was, a horse in training, I'd say my coat is looking good, I'm feeling healthy, and I'm moving great.
When do you come over?
I will go over on Monday. My biggest problem is, and it's a first class problem I know, is getting all of the wardrobe into the bag onto the plane and get it over there. But a lot of my contemporaries, a lot of the horses will leave here on Friday, Saturday. Whoever thought it was a good idea to have a double meeting in Ireland on Saturday and Sunday, the jockeys are not happy here. They're going to be over on Sunday night. So it's not a battalion, it's an entire army we're bringing. And I'd just like to give you all a little statistic. The last 2 years at Cheltenham, there's been 56 races run. 41 of those have come back to these shores, and we will be trying to do the same again.
The weather forecast and the shipping forecast and the ferry crossings are very bad.
We might need to leave in the morning. We will get there.
That sounds ominous. Jane is laying the cards out early for the Irish onslaught next week. What's it like though this time, the kind of calm before the storm? Is it nervous moments for everybody, or is it almost that the work's done, you just gotta get there next week? Anyone feel free to.
There's a long way to go, isn't there? I think there's some bad news creeping out tonight, wasn't there?
Nicky, I'm afraid I'm fresh off the plane from
Classical,
so you'll know more than me.
Well, I don't know. I just only read a thing very briefly.
About
Classical, but not in the stairs, was doubtful.
Oh yeah.
Which one?
Classical.
Yeah, Dream.
Oh,
No,
yeah. Blazing Cal, wasn't it?
Yeah, Blazing
Charles-
Cow.
Charles Burns' horse, yeah. But the
Yeah.
big thing over here is it's the temperatures are plummeting, and you don't want to end up where not only they'd have to put covers on the track, but from an Irish perspective, getting into the center of the track and having your all-weather frozen, that all of that is an imposition when it comes to I can imagine you guys having gallops and all-weather gallops. It's just one of those impositions you could do without.
Where are we at with the weather? I like I said, I've just been away, but a bit of rain in Newmarket today. Are we going to get a little bit of softening of the ground?
I don't
We
think
actually-
anybody knows. I watched the farming, the country file last night, and even he hadn't got a clue. He said, I just don't know. We're forecast -5 tonight, snow on Thursday, rain Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think John in Clark, of course, was actually much happier when it was saying no rain, and therefore he knew how much water he could put on. But if he's got a lot of rain
I
threatening
feel
as
very
well,
sorry for you, Nicky, because that sounds very warm compared with what it's like up here. I hope there's snow. The only horse to be able to run like hell will be the Scottish horses, because they'll be you talked about getting things ready. I'm sure Paul and Nicky will say the same. The slightest, whether you'll have done it through derbies and guineas and whatever, the slightest thing upsets you. I was I was riding car around Blurrin today. I ride him, and he's in the Ultima, and a group of cyclists came by me, and only about 2 pedals too fast. Korak took a complete dislike to them, and I said something about copulation in Anglo-Saxon as they came by, and this one poor fella fell off into the hedge.
Oh no.
So whether he actually I did say to him, I think this horse is joint favourite for the ultimate chase, and you're going past far too fast in your stupid looking lycra. So whether he backs him or not after that, I don't know.
Well, good news is that you stayed on and everyone's fine. So a few more days to go. But yeah, either you've turned the heating off up there, you're being very green, or it is exceptionally cold as I see you in your coats. I am actually sitting right practically in my fire because it's that cold. But is it freezing with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely awful, terrible. So we luckily, I mean, I'm sure Paul and Nicky have done the same. Everything's been, we've done everything with them now, so they've just got to get through the all weathers a little bit now. But there is snow forecast, so
we must also say thank you. This is keeping us warm. The Edinburgh Gin. Paul's got his nicely positioned there. It's even made it all the way to Ireland. Jane, have you poured yourself one?
I'm surprised somebody didn't nick it on the way over, but hey, here we are.
So mine was actually delivered quite a long time ago, and I'm not sure if you can tell, but there's not
most of it
left in this one.
Look, I'm drinking out of a Guinness mug just for the sake of balance.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, thank you to everybody at Edinburgh Gin for the
Very
treat,
good.
and also
I'm
thank
not
you to everyone joining us. I'm loving the little messages popping up below. I've already seen someone saying joining in from Chile, which is very exotic. And I saw a message earlier saying, how good is Apple away? That was a big, exciting win on Saturday. Congratulations, Lucinda and Skew, and to Ed and to the whole team and everyone involved with her. That was super exciting, but we should probably get into our preview, shouldn't we? So we're going to basically have a look at the graded races on each day, and I'm going to rely heavily on Jane here to help me set up the races and then get expert opinion from our trainers. So shall we just dive straight in? First race on the first day, the Supreme. Jane, set the scene for us.
Well, the novice hurdlers this season, a lot of them still have their ultimate target to be decided. Trainers are leaving their options open with regards Supreme Ballymore or Ballymore Albert Bartlett. So I'll just give you an idea of what I think, and then everybody else can say that I'm wrong. But Facile Vega, to me, is not a bad horse on the back of one disappointing run. He boiled over in the parade ring at Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival. He went too fast with high definition. Their splits were 7 seconds faster than State Man in the champion hurdle a little bit later on the same card. By the time they got to the 4th hurdle, it was suicidal pace, and he couldn't last that. He is the highest rated horse in the race. I think if they put a hood on him, he's never raced with a hood before. Drop him in like they did in all his bumpers last year. And I think we could see him very late. If anybody's going to the track, get down to the parade ring, because you're probably only going to see him for all of 5 seconds. He'll be tacked up down the stable yard. He'll be in one lap, the mandatory 1 lap, and down to the start. He is highly strung, but I'd imagine ridden differently if he settles. I think he's the best horse in the race. But with all of those doubts in our minds, Marine Nationale of Barry Connell's, who'll be ridden by Michael O'Sullivan, is a very solid horse. He's 4 from 4. It was probably brave of Barry to put him away after winning the Royal Bond back in December and not give him another run. But he's a speed horse. He's a flatbred horse. He's by French Navy. If the ground is good or even on the yielding side of soft, I think it'll really suit him, because he's a speed orientated horse. I don't think Il Était Temps is good enough. I thought he was the beneficiary of a ferociously run pace at the Dublin Racing Festival. High Definition doesn't jump well enough, and Dr. Bravo comes into it. But with the 6 of the last 9 Supreme Novices have been won by horses rated 153 or higher. Only one horse fits that category, and that's Facile Vega.
Okay. Is he your selection?
He's my selection, but I'm going to ask Paul Nichols to Muras. He's good, but how good is he?
We'll see next week, won't we? Look, he keeps winning. He won a Grade 1 over Christmas, the 3rd and the 4th, the 1st and 2nd Saturday at Kelso. He seems to keep on improving. He's very much, as I've said in the mould, and Noland and Alfroth have both won this race. Future staying chases. I don't know how good he is, because he's only gone as far as we wanted to, but he keeps on winning. So we'll know on Tuesday. He's very well.
Sorry. Nikki, who do you run here?
Me? No, empty. No, we're going to leave this to see if, well, Paul, get on there and take them on. We need to start with a winner for the home team, please.
I think there's shades of John Vaughan about Facile Vega. I remember John Vaughan last year, Nikki. You took every precaution with him. Look, it didn't matter the way Constitution Hill won, but as a trainer with that kind of a horse that's highly strung, the Supreme is actually the race to be in, because you can go down to the stable yard and do all of that, can't you?
Yeah, and it is. It's the first race, so you haven't got to. You're not hanging around. You can saddle him in the stables. As you rightly said to me the other night, I don't think anybody saw John Bond last year. And he was quite good. You can get in, hoods and earplugs and everything, get in, do a lap and get down to the start. But mind you, that atmosphere there is still gets to them. There's no doubt about it. They feel it. I think even when they're leading down from the stables, they can't miss it. There's no doubt it does get to them, and the start will get to them as well. It's going to be interesting to see how many runners they get in these novices as well. You know, it doesn't feel as if they're going to be necessarily full fields, which is uncommon, I know, but I think, you know, there's a strong Irish contingent, but the English, I don't know whether some will run because there's an opportunity to run, or they'll just, I don't think there'll be many.
Do you have a selection in the race, Nikki? Do you have a tip?
I mean, Facile Vega, I can see what happened at the Willie Mullins Racing Festival. And yeah, it looked a bit of a shell shock for him, and it did happen too quickly. I mean, if he's recovered from that, I still say he's looked the best horse we've seen of the 2 mile novices so far. But yeah, there's 1 or 2 English horses that certainly Paul's is probably the best we've got.
And Lucinda and Skew, how much do you look at races where you don't have a runner? Would you be keen to give us a tip here?
Well, just on a point, I rode in King George once against Des Dorcard, and I was told to make it a horse called Bow Ranger, and we actually went quicker over the first 3 furlongs than they did in the Guineas later on. So, I mean, I think Facile Vega's speed was nothing compared to what we did in the King George shows years ago. But I think and I know Lucinda is as well, we're a fan of Timoris of Paul's. Go on,
I
tell
think
us
so.
why.
Well, mostly because we've got form with the horse and we like our horse, so we've got to be loyal to that. And I think, Paul, I'd like you to win for Britain as well. I agree with Nikki.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, good.
Fingers
And
crossed.
David's
No
just popped up in the chat below saying they think Paul looked quietly confident there. So they're just reading the body language. Quietly confident. Okay, great. So let's move on to race 2, the Arkle. Jane, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, not going to be a big field. It's kind of been built as a 2-horse race, and I genuinely think it will probably develop into that. Danny Mullins is going to ride Dysart Dynamo, who has shades of Undersow about him, but he's not as good as Undersow. He had a very good quote last week. He said, instead of getting into his mouth, you need to get into his head. So he basically cannot be restrained, is what he was saying. And I think he'll provide a lovely pacemaker for Aidan Coleman to follow on John Bond, because John Bond can cruise at a very high pace. Nicky will tell us more, but his efficiency with his jumping is incredible. In contrast, El Fabiolo did probably win the strongest novice chase run this season at the Dublin Racing Festival, where he'd been appreciated in Banbridge and Dysart Dynamo, but he is prone to being a little bit silly at his fences, and I think at a pace that this race will be run at, I'm in camp Nicky Henderson here.
How confident is Nicky Henderson here?
We're good. We schooled this morning, and he was very, very good, actually. Aidan was very happy with him. AP was down with us. I think he was very happy. So the reports went back to Barbados that we're all happy. Well, that's one thing. And there's sure to be Dysart Dynamo is going to go a good gallop, and we've made it. Most times he's run over fences, and in fact he had 2 runs without seeing another horse. Things went a little bit wobbly at Warwick, but he got out of trouble in the end in a rather stupidly run 2-horse race. But I think that was quite a good wake-up call for him, actually. And he was sharp this morning. He was very sharp.
So is that the last, is it for all of your, how does it work with your Cheltenham runners?
John Bond's got a piece of that we schooled this morning. We actually weren't going to school till Thursday, but I was nervous about the weather. So we brought it all forward to this morning, and we schooled on the grass. My guys have been watering it for 3 days, and all the jockeys said it was better than any race course they've ridden on this year. So it was lovely ground. And I say, at least we could school on the grass.
Just to understand for everyone at home, would the Tuesday horses work today and the Wednesday horses work tomorrow?
Well,
like that?
Actually, it's the ones that went. These all went to Kempton last Tuesday, and so they haven't. They ticked over the weekend because they'd done a fair bit last Tuesday. So they are going to have the Tuesday, Wednesday horse. All the horses that went to Kempton are going to work tomorrow. And then that'll be them done. And then there's some others to work on Wednesday for later in the week that worked here over the weekend.
And
but
again,
that's about it.
Showing my ignorance, and for anyone who at home who might not be sure, when you say work, is that schooling or is that galloping?
No, they've schooled this morning.
Okay.
And they've all done, they all did the Constitution Hills and John Bonds and Marie's Rocks and nearly anything they wanted to school. I didn't school Epatante. There's no point. She knows more about jumping than I do. So we didn't bother with her, but most of them had a just refresher. They enjoy it. They love it. Then the work they'll do tomorrow is on the, it'll be on the all weather, especially if the forecast. No, we can't work on the grass. We've just watered the schooling ground. But you couldn't work on the grass here, unfortunately. I'd love to. But it's too firm.
The ground's perfect up here. God, we've had a wet winter.
I'll bring them in the morning. They'll work sort of 9 furlongs tomorrow on the all weather. And as I say, those are the ones that went to Kempton on last week. They went a couple of miles there. So I hope they're pretty ready.
And also, sorry, just another kind of broad question. How differently would you work a horse that runs over 2 miles over hurdles, or one that goes 3 miles plus over big fences?
We work them the same. They do exactly the same thing. They just probably work with a slower bunch of horses. There wouldn't be much point in, I mean, if Constitution worked with a 3-mile chaser, you might just finish a little bit too far in front of it. So we try and sort of you try and place them up so they can enjoy a piece of work together without sort of wrecking each other.
Okay. I don't think we need to probably spend too much more time on the Arkle. I'm conscious we need to keep moving on. I don't want to.
Quickly, Jane, where does Banbridge go?
He'll go for the Turners, got caught for pace in the Irish Arkle.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we have got a series of polls on our preview this evening, one for each day, and the poll question relates to the champion hurdle, which I think is going to be quite an easy one to predict. So we might just pop it up soon. And
It might give us the trifecta, Francesca. It might tell us who to go 1, 2, 3.
That's true. That's true. Although I imagine the favourite is going to get quite a lot of votes here. But let's have a look at the poll. Oh no, hang on. We've got the card first. So the hot favourite, Constitution Hill. And then as we go further down, State Man, Jane, second favourite. Just
realistically, he's our best challenge from over here. He's won the Morgiana, he's won the Irish Champion, and he's beat the mare in Honeysuckle. He's an improving horse. He won last year's county hurdle, beating First Street. So you have the 1-2 from last year's handicap, but you know, Constitution Hill is looking like he is a superhero in equine form.
Do we have the poll? Powers that be behind the scenes? Perhaps there is a poll. Anyway,
I heard a stat during the week. Nikki actually heard it with me, and his face just changed a little bit. There's your poll.
Yeah, what's the stat?
The stat is, can anybody tell me when is the last time a horse won the Supreme and followed up in the Champion Hurdle in consecutive years? So win the Supreme and then win the Champion Hurdle in the very next year. Lots of horses have tried and maybe won the Champion Hurdle with a gap in between, or even got beaten in the Supreme to follow up in the Champion Hurdle, but not since 1971, 52 years ago.
No way.
So while Constitution Hill is an absolute, as I said, Batman, he has that little nugget to overcome.
Does that bother you, Nikki?
I'd rather not have heard it. Yeah. Everything worries you at the moment. You can't walk without it. It's a frightening statistic, isn't it? I mean, it's terrifying when you think how many good horses have won the Supreme and what they've gone on to do. I mean, to be fair, okay, with Altior, he went novice chasing the next year, and various other ones we've had that have done that. Yeah, well, we've just got to defeat. What do they say? The statistics, and damn lies, or something like that. I don't know.
Records are to be broken. I think that's what you're going for.
Yeah.
The Champion Hurdle, Nikki. I'd say we won't worry about records.
Do we have the results of the poll? I think everyone probably could vote quite quickly. Here we go. Constitution Hill with an overwhelming 82% of the votes. Second would be State Man, and then I Like to Move It, and then Vauban, and then others, etc. Is that the way you say it, everyone? That roughly that order? Everyone in agreement?
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone see a danger to Constitution Hill? Any reason?
Well, I know Nikki's holding out on this decision, but if Epatante ran in the Champion Hurdle, I'd imagine she'd be in the 3, but she's probably going to go to the mares. Is that right?
I think the plan is, talking to JP today, that really she's going to stay in there. If anything happened to Constitution Hill, she would come in. Otherwise, she'd go for the mares.
Talking of mares, shall we move on to the mares hurdle? The Close Brothers Mares Hurdle. Does Marie's Rock go there, Nikki?
Well, there's the other, Epatante, really, as I say, depending on Constitution Hill, as long as we get a clean run, she will come into the into here and take on Honeysuckle. We would run Theatre Guide as well. Epatante has to be supplemented, to be fair,
Yeah.
but I mean that's actually not a very difficult thing to do. And I think we have to think Marie's Rock is the problem. She won it last year. She won at Punchestown. She was very impressive in the Cleve. There's just an idea we might move her up to 3 miles and try the stayers. Now, the opinions are divided, and we're discussing it every day and changing our minds every day. There's a little bit of news tonight that might influence the decision. We'll just see what's happening every way. But Epatante, I would think, is most likely to have another rematch with Honeysuckle. There wasn't a lot between them in the champion hurdle last year. I mean, we were only actually a length down at the last and made a bit of a hash of it. Got beaten a couple of lengths. We have proved we stayed 2.5 miles when she won at Aintree. She took on Constitution Hill, got thumped a couple of times, but was very, very impressive the other day in what I have to say was a very weak grade 2. But she did win very, very easily. So she's in good form.
Just on Honeysuckle, if she belonged to everybody else on here, would you still be racing her? Would you be racing her in the mares, having been obviously really good in the champion hurdle? What's the general consensus?
I remember when Major Arkle was in charge of Cheltenham, I remember going up to him saying, why don't you have a 2.5 mile, what they put in as the Ryanair Chase? And he said, if you do that, you'll take away from the champion chase and you'll take away from the Arkle, take away from the Gold Cup. And I thought, oh, all right, fair enough. And he was right. And I think this is the danger of people asking for more days at Cheltenham. You weaken these races. If there wasn't a mares race, Honeysuckle would be running the champion hurdle, and you cannot blame the job of Henry de Bromhead and his owner Kenny Alexander, who lives just north of here, is to find a race in which Honeysuckle can win, and she's 2-1 favourite for this, and she wouldn't beat Constitution in the champion hurdle. So that's their job, So if they want to tighten up the champion hurdle, don't have a mares race,
Yeah, I suppose the alternative is to have retired her, right? Because she obviously has been a complete star, and it's always nice to kind of see them go out on a high.
Mr. Henderson, long time retired, So look, she's a racehorse, and she's there to race, and you're always always in danger, whatever you do. So
she's been an absolute star, hasn't she, the whole way through? And
yeah,
if she was to win, it would be the most popular of them you could think of all week. And if we go down to her, well, fair play to her. She's been fantastic, man.
Right. Yeah, I think Constitution Hill would be quite a popular winner as well. So it could be.
Yeah, but he's only had 5 races in her life. She's won 14 or something.
No,
so.
I know. Probably, yeah. Also from a punting perspective as well. Okay, so they're the grade 1s, but you mentioned Korak Rambler earlier. Skew, is that he's in the Ultima, is he, on this day?
He's in the Ultima. I nearly choked on my whatever biscuits I was eating at tea time, and doing my revision for this program, and he's equal favourite for the the Ultima Chase now. So I shall go and give him a big pat before I go to bed tonight. He's just over there. So if I wasn't nervous enough, or listeners and I weren't nervous enough already, we're doubly nervous now. It's all right for Mr. Henderson. Mr. Nichols got so many of these favourites. We've only got one, so I'm very pleased he's favourite. He won last year. Look, it's tough. I see he's equal favourite into Overdrive, and his form looks very, very good into Overdrive. He beat a horse at Wetherby that's now going to run in the Gold Cup, so that form looks very good.
And is he left to you to train, or Lucinda, do you get involved?
I write down the plans and discuss the plans in the morning, and then watch them just get shattered, and he goes off and does his own thing every day. It's easier. We have 2 yards, and when he's at the main yard, it's fine, because he can either go once, twice, or 3 times up the gallops. But when he's over here at the farm, he just disappears off up the hills. I don't see him really. But I have to say his work rider's been doing quite a good job up till now, so I'll have to leave him to it.
And still riding Apple most days?
I wrote about where the cyclist fell off. I rode Apple down the verge the other day, and the Cinders brothers far richer than us, and he came by in his blue Bentley, and I waved at him, and with that, Apple took off down the verge 100 mile an hour, and I tried to point her at a signpost to stop her, but it didn't work, so we galloped onto the road, but it didn't hurt us. But I do ride her occasionally, but she is, for a man of my years, she's getting plenty for me.
Okay. And
She's too hot to handle for skill. You know, women are like that with him. It just
It's an age thing. It's an age thing. It didn't used to happen.
and I know Aintree potentially in the future could be a long-term target for her, but would there be a race potentially at Cheltenham for her in the
Well,
next year, maybe?
this time, there's a thought that she go to Aintree for the 3-mile novice hurdle. This time, she likes a flat left-handed track. She stays well. Whether she's good enough, I don't know. So there's a thought, or there is back to Ayr in the spring meeting. There's a 3-mile handicap hurdle there. And then hopefully she would go and jump fences next season. But she has, you know, to win the listed race the other day, probably was the strongest listed race that ever existed. But Paul and I talked about it before, Paul and Nicky deal with these horses all the time, but I only come across them occasionally in my life. I mean, she doesn't get tired, you know. That's you could send her 6 times up the gallops and she wouldn't get tired. She's just one of those. She's not the fastest, but she doesn't get tired. So anything as she gets older in her career that we can find extreme distances with her would be great. And you know, she jumps a fence. Everything about her suggests she jumps a fence, but you never know until you do.
Okay. Now I'm quite keen to keep moving. Shall we tackle, well, I was going to say, should we tackle Wednesday, but does anyone have any gems for us on Tuesday and the other races? Hands up.
I would mention Gaillard de Menil in the National Hunt Chase. I don't know what the trainer's thoughts are, but I think the National Hunt Chase will need a look at when this guy wins by 20 lengths, a little bit like Statler did last year. It looks uncompetitive, and I wonder, should that race be changed into a handicap? And I think the Cork Rambler has a fantastic chance in the Ultima. If I was to venture one that could be his biggest danger, it'll be a handicap debutant called Adamantly Chosen. He's ran up behind Jerry Colomba at Limerick, and he actually was ahead of Gaillard de Menil when he was behind another grade 1 horse at Leopardstown who I can't think of, but basically he's been second in 2 grade 1s, and while he'll have a weight in that handicap, he has it for a good reason. He wants quick ground, and he's been running on soft over here.
What was his name again?
You can get in his way or do something at the start to Adamantly Chosen.
Oh yeah, 16 to 1 he is. Just drifted.
That's because I said
it. Do you bet, Jane?
I don't know. I think I'm invested enough, but if I was,
ever since you gave up riding, you stopped betting of it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, I feel like I'm invested enough in them in all other emotions. So here we are.
Okay. Me too.
It's worth just mentioning with Honeysuckle, regardless of whether she wins or loses, there's going to be an unbelievable reception for everyone involved, because it's the Jack de Bromhead Mayor's Hurdle this year, and win, lose or draw, there's going to be emotions running high at the end of day 1.
And definitely her last race, or possibly not?
That's what we're told, but you just don't know. But I think it's coming into the spring now. She's going to be covered this year. That's what's on the cards.
Okay. Do we know who by?
Walk in the Park.
Okay. Right. Paul, you've been rather quiet. Let's talk about your warm favourite in the Ballymore. How is he? Ms. Allen, we're talking about.
Yeah, he's in good form. Very happy with him. Everything's gone well since he last ran. I'm glad he shows more on the course than he does at home, because he doesn't show a lot at home. But we got to know him now. He looks fab. He had a little away day last week, just where we want him to be. Just going down through the Bethany and the racing post. It looks like us versus the Irish totally in this race. Yeah, look, he's done nothing wrong. He won at Stratford first time, won at Cheltenham, won the Challow at Christmas. That form's worked out really well. Couldn't be going into the racing better, Nick. It's just whether he's good enough, isn't it?
Jane, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's that. I remember having this statistic with Stage Star as well, and Paul isn't going to like me for saying it, but it's just worth saying. 20 Challow Hurdle winners have tried to win at Cheltenham and they've failed. But this guy has looked like he's just improved every time, and has, for me, been underestimated all the way along. I think he's to go the pace that he did in the Challow and maintain it when Harry Skelton went crazy and stopped, and other horses tried to chase him and stopped. I think he's genuinely worthy top of the market. Imperi Pass is the horse I like in it for Simon Muneer and Isaac Swade of Willie Mullins's. I think he hasn't beaten the same level of opposition that Hermes Allen has beaten. I think the best horse he's beaten is rated 130, but he's mentally a very solid horse, and I get the vibe that Camp are very confident in him. But I see Ryan down the bottom typing in Gaelic Warrior. Gaelic Warrior is the highest rated novice hurdler in Britain or Ireland this year so far. He won 150 grand handicap at the Dublin Racing Festival to give him a rating of 152. He's not easy. He jumps to his right. Apparently has had a procedure on his back since he kind of threw away the Boodles Fred Winter last year, which ultimately left him a novice for this year anyway. But he's got immense ability. He's just difficult to ride. Goodland won a grade 1 over 2.5 at Leopardstown for Barry Connell. Barry, it was suggested that he go to the Albert Bartlett, and he replied very quickly, I do not, this horse isn't a slow horse. So let's find out, Barry, if he's slow or not. The each way bet for me in this race is a horse called In the Pocket. He's going to be ridden by Rachel Blackmore for Henry de Bromhead and JP McManus. He got locked in by Danny Mullins. Danny Mullins was riding Il était Temps over 2 miles at Leopardstown. This guy just lacked the tactical pace there. Up the extra couple of furlongs, I think In the Pocket will be maybe a horse for place money, but Hermes Allen I have a lot of respect for, but my selection will be Imperi Pass.
Okay. And G Stein agrees with In the Pocket there. Loving all these little messages popping up. I think we have a very knowledgeable crowd tuning in tonight, and I think they'll be having their pens out, furiously writing down all the extra bits of information and your tips, Jane, as well. Thank you very much. Paul, any runners in the Ballymore? Not Paul, Nikki, sorry.
Oh, Persian Time, he's still in there. We're just going to look at it. I wouldn't think he really knows enough about it. We were just discussing it an hour before the program, but he's still in there because I can't find anywhere else to go. But we'll probably have a look at the entries and just see how many runners there are going to be. If there was an enormous field, I think we might duck it. But if it was it's funny how these races aren't filling as much as they used to. So it mightn't be the helter skelter. It'll surely go a good gallop, but it's not as if there's 24 runners coming down the hill.
Okay, and hands up, and anyone with a runner in the Brown Advisory? Second grade 1 of the day, at least. No one? No runners? Any thoughts, or will I go to Jane?
Unfortunately, I think yes.
Okay.
It's going to be a small field. It's disappointing, Francesca. This race is going to be, for each way backers, probably not 3 places. Jerry Colomb is going to tie through with Balco Coastal, and I get Nikki's opinion on that because the Scilly Isles looked for a moment like it was going to 7 Barrows, and then it just looked like Jerry Colomb outstayed him. He, to me, needs soft ground to excel. So ground watchers, if Jerry Colomb is running on quick, I would oppose him, and I would oppose him with the Real Whacker, who won the Dipper very well, and if he wasn't trained by a small trainer in Pat Neville, I think he'd be a lot shorter in the market. I saw Sir Gerhard, the Cheltenham Bumper winner, last year's Ballymore winner, saw him run his beginner's chase and win at Goran. He's not a good jumper. He has limited scope, and there is no doubt in my mind that's the reason he's running over 3 miles, to slow things down so that he doesn't have to be reaching for fences, because that might put him on the floor. He's only had 1 run over fences, and that isn't ideal coming in here. I would oppose him all day long of Willie Mullins's. Time Hill, look, you can say what you want. He's been a great horse, but I don't know if his best days are behind him now. For me, I think the Real Whacker has a great chance, and it would be a great story for a small team.
The Real Whacker. It's an interesting name, isn't it? Funny enough, I was racing in India this weekend, and one of the horses was called Once You Go Black, and we were like, "Oh, was there meant to not be?"
What about the week where the whip will be all anybody can talk about and the Real Whacker wins? Huh?
I know. Not ideal.
Although that we don't use very often, isn't it, darling?
What?
I was racing in India this weekend.
Oh,
As you
Jessica,
do.
you're way ahead of us.
I tell you what, I was all over the form for the Invitation Cup at Bangalore, won by Juliet. You know, Cheltenham I'm a little bit sketchy on, but no, it was an eye opener. I actually bumped into the guys that owned Once You Go Black, and they were about to they were trying to name his brother, and they were considering BBC, which was quite interesting. Big brown colt, you know.
Oh, no, we're back.
Anyway, moving on.
No, I'm back.
Oh, he's back.
Well, we have to ask Nicky about what he thinks of Jerry Colomb with the line through the Scilly Isles. Is he just a slow slogger, or has he the class that makes him?
Well, we'd looked if we'd quickened the race up from 3 out to 2 out, and we're going to go and win well. And we'd actually just beaten him for some toe, hadn't we, really? It looked like it. And then from going to the last, he came back past us like we weren't quick. He just outstayed us completely. So I suppose he's going for the 3 miler, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
He'd come into the I don't know. We'll probably stick where we are. I mean, this horse has got some speed, and I think we can improve him a little bit from that day.
Okay, shall we move on? Shall we move on and have a look at the poll for day 2, which is going to be based on the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase. We might be looking at the field first. Shall we have a quick glance at the field before we get the poll up? Let's have a look. Here we go. So, Jane, do you want to have a look through and pick out the main chances?
Yeah, look, it's been thrown a little bit open on the back of the Clarence House. I believe in Argamean's stable has been painted white, never mind the takeoff boards of the fences at Closutton because of the way he jumped that day. But for me, Edward Stone was always in the wrong position, tracking him, and realised coming down the hill that Tom Cannon had a lot of ground to make up on Editor de Gite, who had got a free lead, and he ran a marvellous race to just fail. Shack and Persois won't run here. Blue Lord will run in the Ryanair. Curse Sublime isn't good enough, and Amble Civila picked up pieces last year. Gentleman to me is a question mark on ground. His ground turned up good. He's a very free forward going horse. He would really upset Editor de Gite on the front end, but I might be led to believe that he's going straight to Aintree. Paul can tell us about Grenadine, and Nubin Negra was second in the race beforehand, but I think 7 of the last 12 Arkle winners have gone on to complete the double in the next year, Edward Stone. And while he's rated £6 inferior to last year's winner Energumene, I think this one's staying at home, and I think it's going to go to Alan King.
Okay, Edward Stone for you. Let's see what our poll says. Everybody fingers on the buzzers or on your mouse pad, and a little tick for the horse that you think is going to win. The last preview we did with Paul Nicholls and Ben Merritt in London, there was a bit of a divided camp between Energumene and Edward Stone. But while we do this, Paul, give us the case for Grenadine.
He's a case for an each way a chance. He was only beat 4 lengths in the race 2 years ago. I put a line for his run at Newbury the other day. I probably have less ready than I thought. Graham was too quick. He'll run a good solid race. Whether he's good enough to win is obviously debatable, but he could easily run into a place. That's being realistic.
Okay. Have I given people enough time to vote? Nikki, if you were voting, who would you go for?
I think, as we said, I'm Edward Stone.
Okay,
I think it'd be fascinating. We know Grenadine, we know Energumene well, but I think you're right. I think they were binding each other. It's hard to get away from Gary Moore's horse. He was very impressive. I think they were just minding each other a little bit too much the other day and let him away. But I'm Edward Stone.
How about the camp up north?
I'm Edward Stone. What are you?
I like Eddie to Gita. So he's entitled to improve again. I think he's been trained by a more fashionable Henderson or a Nicholls. He'd probably be a shorter price. I watched the race carefully. I thought Edward yes, they were watching each other, but he got there, Edward
No.
Stone. He got to the front and couldn't beat him in the end. So, yeah, I mean, maybe Edward Stone will improve for the run and all the rest of it, as trainers or assistant trainers talk about. But 11-2, Edward de Geet, that'll do me. Not
Do we have the results of our poll, please? Many people agreeing with the panel here.
13% of people agree with me.
Hang on, how many? Yeah, 13%. Well, that's not bad.
It's worth asking, and I don't know which trainer wants to take this, but does it make that much of a difference, the change of colour, the take off boards, orange to white? And if it does, should there not be symmetry between both countries, that if you guys go white, we follow, or vice versa?
Well, personally, I'd say the first time they see a white hurdle, they spook like nothing on earth. And if you haven't schooled over one before you go to the race course, I would guarantee you'd be in trouble.
No, I think
I did it once one day and it cost me 2 races because I hadn't shown them a white one. I think they all need to see one.
I think it's worse at a ditch. Well, we definitely have horses fall because they've come to they've jumped the plains all right, and suddenly get to a ditch, and the white over the black thing for the ditch makes a huge difference. I mean,
I think even over hurdles, fine, run out, duck out, do everything the first time. The next time they're brilliant.
Yeah.
I lost one at Worcester early in the season at the ditch. Good old Grand Sancy, he'd been round every track in country, entry Cheltenham, went to the first ditch, big whiteboard, launched at it, landed in it.
Yeah.
Sadly, we lost him. To be honest with you, yeah, we should marry the same in Irish, English should be the same, either orange or white, whatever. But I don't ever get in the beginning whose idea it was to change it to back. What was wrong with it before? And I'll guarantee you, Nicky wasn't asked, Dan Skelton, you guys weren't asked. Whoever it was at Exeter University come up with these ideas is beyond me. And the money that's gone down the drain for doing that is just ludicrous. Why they don't ask the people that know instead of come up with some stupid idea like that? It's madness. And we've got to go with it now. But it's just one of those things. Someone comes up with it, has got no idea, trying to make a name for themselves. It's ludicrous. Do you not all agree?
Absolutely.
I don't, Paul, I actually think they jumped the white ones better. I must admit, I do. I think I don't know. I find they do. They look at them and it just does make them have a bit of a better look at it. It is a higher definition, and I don't know. We've just found they've been. I'd hate to run one over a white fence or hurdle without showing them one.
That's why you have a consultation process, and that's why we have to have symmetry between the countries. Because God forbid the Irish horses go over and you have a Grand Sancy eventuality. So that was just wonderful.
I can guarantee you, what I've done schooling with all of mine and all the years I've been doing, it makes no difference whatsoever schooling. Whether it does on the track, Nicky, that's fine. I don't think it makes any difference whatsoever. And I know the jockeys don't think so either. The ones I spoke to anyway. But anyway, I'd move on to something more interesting.
Just quickly, Jane, do the trainers set up their own fences with the white, or is there somewhere they can go to?
As somebody just put into the chat, the Dulux has been out over here. All the takeoffs have been painted. I know the Curragh have changed some because we still race over orange hurdles. You're not going to change all of them, but some of them have definitely been changed a little bit. Like anybody who's going to Cheltenham now, we've heard what Willie Mullen said about Energumene, and you know what? If he hadn't gone to the Clarence House and if he hadn't made those mistakes, they wouldn't be doing this and they wouldn't be having those conversations. So I think
that's the greatest shame. If he hadn't done that, all the Irish horses would have come to Cheltenham, having never seen a white hurdle.
You know what?
We'd have wiped out.
It would have been a whitewash.
At the risk of being politically incorrect here, we're talking about a way to salvage the sport and keep everything PC and perception. We could have had a travesty.
Just, I mean, who came up with the orange back in the day?
Another scientific study done at a college.
Okay. It's a bit like those ones, isn't it? Caffeine's good for you one day and not the next, and red wine.
So when we all go with the punches down, we got to get the orange paint out again.
I'd say the champion bumper's looming, and there's no jumps there.
Right, come on, let's go the champion bumper.
We nearly called it off last year for a bit of rain, lads. If we get a bit of rain this year, can we please just not have a Stewards Inquiry, run on soft ground or National Hunt horses? We're not afraid of it. Your top of the market is currently one of Willie Mullins's. Who's surprised by that? No one. He's won it 12 times, but horses that have only ran in one bumper and won have a very poor record in this race. Only one of the last 12 have actually managed to do that. So that's it for me. I do get the vibe from Camp Mullins that none of their geldings are outstanding, but there's a lot of confidence behind the mare. Fun. She won at Sligo over the summer by an absolute furlong, and then she won at the Dublin Racing Festival after being purchased by Munir and Suede. But the real horse that should be top of the market is a horse called A Dream to Share. He's trained by John Kiley, who is arguably the best bumper trainer either side of the Irish Sea. He's in his 80s. It will be a great story. But this guy's by Muharar out of a Galileo mare. So he's all pace and he's going to want good ground. I don't think he wants to see soft or heavy in the going description. He'll be ridden by John Gleeson, Brian's son. So that will be a popular result if anybody is watching in on ITV Racing. He's the best form in the race and I think he should be favoured.
Do you give any chance to Queen's Gamble? Because Ian Gunn just mentioned her, and it reminded me because also in India at the weekend was Alex Frost, who is owner or part owner of her, and he was mentioning the fact that she's running in this race. Does she have a chance?
She does. She's got experience. Your UK trainers will have a better grasp of the English form, but second season bumper horses don't typically have a great record in this race. And there was one worth mentioning as well. Captain Teague got a very positive mention from Tom Malone at bigger price than another preview. Paul, can you tell us more?
Yeah, lovely horse. He won a point-to-point over with you last spring. One has only started Plumpton for us. Had a bit of trouble with Sortians in the spring. He's working nicely. He'll run a tidy race. We're not going into this thinking we're going to win. If he has a nice time and runs well, we'll be very happy with him. I do wonder if Queen's Gamble might have left a race behind a market racing the other day. They kept putting that race on and off and on and off, and she had quite a hard race that day, and just hope that didn't leave that behind, because she's obviously a very talented mare, but I think it's as normal would be the Mullins horses to beat.
Just to explain, second season bumper. So how many can they run in? How many bumpers can you run in?
With the champion bumper, you could run in 4 plus a champion bumper. So you get an extra one if you're running in a champion. And Queen's Gamble, I think she's great. And I think I agree with Paul. It was a market raisin didn't suit her at all. I mean, her strength is coming up the hill at Cheltenham. And I think she's been fantastic when she's been doing that. Market raisin is a completely different ballgame altogether. And she got beaten in a tactical race. And I'd still love to see her win. And I actually seriously think she can. She's been very impressive twice at Cheltenham. She's a good mare. She's a very, very good mare. And she is a second season. She's got a lot of experience. You say one run doesn't normally get you enough experience to get there.
Okay.
Jane, can I come in with one? Because this is inside information. Canto Bruno, I knew that they were thinking of sending it over hurdles, and they sent it over here, and it won a bump at Cheltenham, and then they thought they would save it. Then John McConnell, who's a quite excellent trainer, has saved this horse for this race, so that he's 12-1. I don't know what you've heard of him, Jane.
I've heard positive enough. He's by a horse called Mahler, who typically give you stamina horses, but I actually was in Ballymore when he won his point-to-point, and he was quite impressive. Vibes are that he's going here. He's obviously a course winner, and if he was in a bigger yard, he'd be a lot shorter than he is. He might be a lively outsider. They do say, they being people who've actually won champion bumpers, not me, that it takes a stamina horse. So maybe my speed horse isn't going to be what you want. Maybe you need a horse like Encanto Bruno, or indeed Better Days Ahead, who for Gordon Elliott seems to be his first string, and Jamie Cott has already pinned the colours to his mast.
Okay, that's it for the grade ones. Does anyone have a nap of the day for us on Wednesday? Don't all shout at once.
as for the trainers, imagine having a horse of Galvin's caliber, a horse that's been placed in an Irish Gold Cup, placed in a Cheltenham Gold Cup, and running him in a cross-country race. Imagine that. Jamie Codd's going to ride him. Davy Russell will ride Delta Work. Delta Work won the race last year, having never raced in public over cross-country fences. He's your current favourite. But Galvin seems to be getting all the right vibes, and the fact that he's not over the hill, the fact that if he was in the Gold Cup, he'd probably be 10 or 12 to 1, and he's running the cross-country race. That's for me.
I couldn't get any enthusiasm for the cross-country race at the Bucks Club preview we did. Paul was not a big fan of it. Nikki and Lucinda, as you, not fans either?
No,
I actually enjoy watching it, but I've never really sort of taken part. So, yeah, we got placed once.
Yeah, I'm not a great fan of it. Same as Nikki, I enjoy watching it. I think the French and the Irish do particularly well at it because they're used to riding it. You eventing people, you should be able to take something down to this, my dears.
I do. Well, I think it's interesting now that you've got a horse like Galvin. I mean, that's a classy horse. If, they sort of see it as a fun race, but actually the Irish seem to be taking it very seriously and using it as a prep race for the national. That's a great idea, isn't it?
And I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. Glen Farkas is a very fine whiskey.
She's a very fine whiskey, actually. Just second only to Glengoyne.
And is it only recently that it's become a bit of a trial for the national, like with the Tiger Roll?
Silver Birch ran in it, did he? I think.
He did. He won it. He ran in it and won the national.
Yeah, Gordon Elliott. It was always in the Bulgers party piece, and John Thomas McNamara and Nina Carberry, Gardner Champetre and Spotted Difference. They were great horses in that discipline, but when you put them into open company, they weren't that effective. But now it's a completely different ball game, and I believe Michael O'Leary once called it a potato race or something ridiculous, like insulted the race, and now he's won 3 or 4 of the last 5 runnings with Tiger Roll and Delta Tour.
Talking of him, have you negotiated a special rate for all your luggage next week?
I'm dreading Terminal 2 in Dublin. Ryanair's gates will be a mile away, and God knows the queues will be long. I don't know why they don't put on more flights this week. Don't they know the demand will be there?
Just make sure you pre-book your 5 suitcases, all right? Because the fees at the airport are horrendous, as I'm sure you know.
You would know.
Touche. Okay, are we done with Wednesday? Should we move on to Thursday? Everyone happy? Okay, let's start with the Turners. Who's got what where? Nikki, have you got Balka Coastal?
Well, that's where I'm going to go with Balka Coastal, yeah, unless I get cold feet and go 3 miles. But I still think he's a 2.5 mile horse. He did get beaten by the horse we're talking about, whose name I forget, that Sandown in the City House. But
Jerry Company.
the only thing, I just think we can improve on him a little bit there. He takes a lot of work, and it just might have been a bit short. He jumped a little bit to his left, and I'm just trying to eke out a couple of good reasons why we could find a little bit of improvement. I think we can. He worked very well at Kempton last week. He was very sharp at schooling this morning. But it seems to me that we're walking into a bed of fire with these Irish horses that I don't think any of you know who's the best of them, do you? I don't anyway, but we're going to take them on.
Paul?
Yeah, well, Stage Star, I think, are running this, unless, again, I'll get cold feet and switch them to the Brown Advisory earlier in the week, which if it didn't rain is possible. You've got to look at both races. But if there was a bit of rain and the ground was on the soft side, on this track, the new course was a bit more emphasis on stamina. He won over the course of distance on trials day. Yeah, we're going to take on the Irish in this and have a go.
Horse I've always liked. I watched him since he won at Cheltenham beginning of the season. I had my eye on him. He just looks a real honest horse. Is Banbridge, owned by one of Nicky's leading owners, Mr. Ronnie Bartlett, who lives here in Scotland. But I like Banbridge, 7-2.
Jane, your selection?
Banbridge is a good horse, and he's getting a lot of love in our message as well. I saw William wrote in that he thinks he wins standing on his head. Well, I hope he's not standing on his head like Galopin Deschamps was at the last year. He prefers good ground. He'll likely get better ground here. He was third to Mighty Potter in the Drinmore at the beginning of the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ran a very good race, but I would venture to say that the best novice chaser in Britain or Ireland this year is Mighty Potter. I know he disappointed in the Supreme last year when he pulled up, but blatantly there was something amiss. He came back and he won a grade 1 at Punchestown. He's an incredibly well-bred horse. He's got a very good mind and he's an extremely good jumper. I think there's no banker when it comes to novices, but I think he's the best novice around.
I think you're right.
Worth a mention for Appreciated. I think he's going to go here. He is a Supreme Novices winner. He was missing for 2 years. He ran a champion hurdle. He's a 9-year-old, and I don't know if he has the gears that he had before, but up and trip will help him, but time isn't on his side.
Okay, so on Thursday, there's kind of a double header as to which is the feature race on the day, but let's have a look at both of them in a bit more detail. We'll start with the Ryanair, and I think we'll have a look at the field first before we put up the poll again and get everybody's thoughts on that. Let me just check who's going where. Gosh, can everyone read that?
We're possibly going to have a few more runners here, but I think it was this podcast, this Zoom preview last year, where I asked a question to Nicky Henderson. I'm going to ask him the same question. Nicky Henderson, I asked you last year, is it possible that you were running a Gold Cup horse in the Champion Chase? I want to ask you the same question. Is it possible you're running a Gold Cup horse in the Ryanair?
It's possible. It's possible, but for all the advice, all I can tell you is that I've got a sort of, I have my own poll here, which race he should be running in, and I'm so confused. He will run in the Ryanair. There was a very interesting article in the Telegraph the other day, which on one side of the page was Marcus Armitage, who does actually come and ride out here most days. Say, dead right, you've got to go Ryanair, and it's the perfect race for him. 1 inch to the right was Charlie Brooks writing an article saying, if you don't run in the Gold Cup, you're absolutely barking. And there is still Matt Chapman going on saying I should be running him in the Champion Chase. So you could
please tell me you don't listen to any of them, especially not.
Well, I'm not listening to Matt Chapman for once because he's not in the Champion Chase and I'm not supplementing him. So that's that. I think it's the Ryanair. I mean, the 2.5 at Ascot suited him down to the ground the other day, and upping him in trip made a very big difference. And I would rather go that way, and then maybe in the perfect world, have a look at 3 miles at Aintree, and then we can think about next year. That's overthinking it. It's too easy. But yeah, maybe one day he will. But at the moment, it's Ryanair. And he's in good shape. He's going to work tomorrow. And rightly or wrongly, that's what we're going to do. Now, to be fair, it's hardly, Joe Donnelly is the most wonderful man you could ever train a racehorse for. He doesn't have an opinion. He has an opinion, but he wouldn't tell you. And he just lets you get on and do whatever you feel is the right thing. And he'd never say it was the wrong thing, even if you knew it was the wrong thing.
That's heaven.
Wonderful man, wonderful man. So I've got to do it on my own. I wish somebody would come in and tell me that I really want to run in the Gold Cup. Let's go. But we're not.
But that should be I'm not sure we can mock up a poll that quickly as to the distance everybody thinks he should be running over. But Paul, how many are you likely to have in competition?
Well, Pic Doris took a while to get over getting thrashed by Shiskin the other day, so he's going to Aintree. Going to run Hitman. He didn't get 3 miles at Newbury the other day. We're all playing for second if Shiskin turns up as he did at Ascot. And for what it's worth, Nicky, you're definitely running in the right race. First step up and trip. He looked so good the other day. Why at this moment would you want to go further or shorter? So you're doing the right thing, and you're going to be hard. You're going to be hard to beat.
Actually, you're right. We've got a poll here. What do our northern team think? Would you go for the Ryanair?
We've had a conflab here, and we definitely think Nicky has done the right thing in running the Ryanair. We would definitely run Shiskin in the Ryanair.
I would definitely run in the Ryanair.
Because you're definitely going to win the Gold Cup.
Jane, do you concur?
Look, I you know me, Francesca, I like my pedigrees, and that's from day one why I thought he was going to end up being a long distance horse, because he's a Shalakov out of an Exetenor, out of a Rosalier from the family of Vuller Le Vedette, who probably gave Big Bucks one of his biggest frights in the Stairs hurdle. But there is always next year. I don't like that phrase in racing because so much can happen in a week, never mind a year. But this is the easier assignment, and he should win on ratings and on what he did at Ascot. Blue Lord is a grand horse, but he's not a great horse. Janadil will improve from what we saw at Goran because he looked very heavy in the ring, but he's not a star, and neither is French Dynamite, whereas Shishkin is a star, you see. He has a rating of 174, which puts him just £1 behind Galopin Deschamps, and I think he's going to win so impressively that the question will be asked Nicky Henderson. So just as soon as he crosses the line, it's going to be like, should you run tomorrow? Matt Chapman might ask it. You might give him a note. He definitely didn't win the Champion Chase.
Prepare yourself. Just a quick one. I've lost the question now, but basically someone asking, you worried that he had a hard race at Ascot, Nicky? Did he have a hard race at Ascot?
Well, I think the beauty of Ascot was it's the first time he didn't have a hard race.
Okay.
His hard races were against an Urgenine in the Clarence House last year. Then a big blip at Cheltenham, but that wasn't a hard race. He only jumped 4 fences. Where he did have a hard race was actually in the Tingle Creek. And that was because over 2 miles, they were just taking out of his comfort zone the whole way. And we knew at Ascot the other day, you could tell after 2 fences, we were on a completely different horse. He'd grabbed the bridle, he took Nico down to the first, the second, the third, and he was a completely new horse because he was traveling in his own comfort, and it made all the difference. Yes, we had done something to his wind in between, but that wasn't the point. It was just the extra 5 furlongs slowed the race down a bit, and he could travel all the way. I can't believe they can go much faster than that. It was competitive. Paul's horses picked Tory. It was a proper race. He didn't have a hard race. He went further and further away. I suppose that's the only reason you say you could go 3 miles, is that he actually was going away further at the end.
Okay, we haven't done the poll yet, have we? Should we put the poll up? Here we go. There are your options. Okay, so we're predicting Shishkin's likely to get the most number of votes. Biggest danger, Jane?
Biggest danger, maybe Blue Lord. I think up in Trip he got exposed badly in the Irish Arkle. He's run a Clonmel, and the Clonmel Oil was good to beat Fakir Duderies, who's a fair yardstick, who might well also line up here, or else he'll go to Aintree after his last disappointing run. But I think the training achievement of the year might be one of this, and that was to get Shishkin back to where he looked like he once was. So well done, Nicky Henderson.
I think there's talk of putting Shishkin and Constitution Hill in a
match.
Double. No.
Match race like Porkhouse and Don Run.
No, I think there's a bit of chat as to how many lengths. People want to know how many lengths they're both going to win by, so then they can double them up. Any stab in the dark, Nicky?
Cheapest. Next time, just if the result was right, like you say, it would be wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. And the results of the poll, please. There we go. That is pretty conclusive. 85% for Shishkin, and then the rest nowhere essentially in the poll. Hitman 3%, Blue Lord 3%, Conflated and Fury Road 2%. So looks like they're pretty keen on your horse, Nicky. Good luck with that one.
I won't tell him.
Yeah, don't tell him. Don't tell him. Okay, let's move on to the Stayers Hurdle. Let's put the poll up nice and early. And let's look at the field and then look at the poll. Jane, run us through the field and your thoughts.
Yeah, again, another top heavy from an Irish perspective. Ashdale Bob, likely pace angle. I don't know if your steering for Lange goes here. Beacon Edge goes to the Coral Cup. There's a doubt over Blazing Cal, but I wouldn't read too much into it for a Charles Burns perspective. Botox has will probably run. Shack and Persois won't run here. God almighty, that's typically Willie Mullins' entry, isn't it? Dashel Drasher, Flooring Porter. There's a horse that's probably value. Winner of the last 2 renewals. Has had an absolute torrid time this year for whatever reason. His preparation has gone very poorly in terms of training, has been a nightmare, and he was disappointing at Leopardstown last time. If he brings his A game back, he's still value. Flicking down through them, Hewick obviously goes to the Gold Cup. Home by the Lee is a rapid improving horse this year for Joseph O'Brien and JJ Slevin, albeit JJ is going to have to be very, very strong on him because he takes a lot of persuading. Classical Dream is a doubtful runner, former Supreme winner, but doesn't properly stay this distance. Langer Dan probably goes for one of the handicaps. Paisley Park has been a brilliant horse, but is he good enough at the age of 11? St. Sam won't run. He got beaten yesterday. Leopardstown. Sharjah won't run over 3 miles. Sar de Burley likely to go maybe here, or the Pretemps. Sir Gerhard runs over fences. Somerville Boy was well beaten by Tehupo when they met at Gorn last time, and Tehupo will be my selection. I think he's a very good improving horse. The first time we saw him over 3 miles, he was facile. I think they were running him over the wrong trip last year, and they only realised it this year.
Tell you what, there's some knowledge coming out of there, Jane, and a lot of people noticing it too.
It's just flowing. The gin is flowing.
I don't know. I think it looks like you're drinking Barocca or something, or orange juice. So you need to give us the secret potion, because you're all over it. Who are you working for next week?
Racing TV.
Racing TV.
Come say hi.
I will. Okay. Sorry, I have to confess to being a little bit jet lagged and lacking a huge amount of sleep. So the poll, let's put up the poll and see what everyone thinks about the stayers. Let's have a look. Tehupo was Jane's selection. Blazing Carl, that was the one there was a little bit of a question mark over, right? As to participation.
Yeah, we don't actually know what the question mark is, talking about a piece of work, but he was very good when he came back at Navan in the Boyne. He's a very highly rated horse, got a rating 157, but I don't know if he's got the class that a Tehupo has. Home by the Lee again goes under the radar, even though he's a Grade 1 winner this season, beating Florine Porter. But what about Marie's Rocknicky if she goes here? Is she arguably getting a better chance to win this than taking on 2 former champions in the mayor's race?
I'm in favour of this, to be honest with you. Tom Palin, who manages Midland Park, is sort of, he's on the side of the mares. She won it last year. She won again at Punchestown. She was very good in the Cleve on New Year's Day. 2.5 round Cheltenham, she is very, very good. She's flown up the hill every time. Once Henderson realised that she stayed, because I had her down as a 2-miler for the first 2 years. As soon as we gave her another half a mile, she was absolutely revolutioned. You've got to say that, I mean, if you have Honeysuckle and Epitante, and we're lucky enough to have Epitante and actually Theatre Glory to Guide to come into the mares, it makes a lot of sense in a funny way to look at this. But the more you look at it, I think this is easier than the mares. I prefer it to be earlier in the week on the easier track, I must admit, but because we would be testing her stamina to quite a degree. She's never been 3 miles, but she's looked as if the further she goes, the better she goes. And we're monitoring this very, very closely. And I say there was rumor of a horse that wouldn't run. We'll just have to see what does happen. Epitante, as we say, if she comes into the mares, you've got three champion hurdles coming into that race, and she does stay really, really well. And she and Epitante actually worked together at Kempton the other day, and there's no doubt Epitante's much quicker than Marie's Rock. That's not surprising, but I can see her staying. And the more I think of it, the more I'm thinking that we need. Tom and I talk every day, and no decision has been made. I would be in favour of stayers.
What about this French horse, Gold Tweet? A few people asking, and he needs to be supplemented, right? And if he is, what kind of chance do you give him, Jane?
Henri de Farceur and Gold Tweet both have to be supplemented. I can't weigh up the French form. Hugo Marienne seems to be quite confident that Henri de Farcer has what it takes. What we saw from Gold Tweet last time tells us that he's as good as what's in Britain. The fact that they weren't entered would worry me a bit, that it's a little bit of an afterthought, but Henri de Farcer is a 6-year-old. He's the horse that's, for me, most likely to maybe spring a surprise, but he's going to have to be good if he's going to beat the Irish, if I'm honest. The mare is the best of the British in my book. I think the others are, with all due respect to Paisley Park, they're probably gone past their prime.
Results of the poll, do we have them? Ta-da. I think everyone's just following you, Jane.
Yeah, but you know what? Charles Burns has a funny habit of biting us all in the backside. I have a soft spot for Hugo for the big reason that he reminds me a lot of the way big bucks used to race. You think he's beaten, you think he's beaten, you think he's beaten, and then he wins 10 lengths.
And of our panelists, what do the Scottish team think? Who are they keen on?
I know nothing about it, but I was very impressed with Gold Tweet.
Okay.
And I back Blazing Cow because maybe worked badly, but doesn't mean to say that it'll run badly.
And Paul, who would you go for?
Yeah, that's
Tearpoo. I definitely think he's the one.
Okay. All right. Now the mares, Novices hurdle. It's obviously a grade 2, but it's definitely worth chatting about. Nikki, is this where Lucia goes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she'd
Think
be
so. That's the plan.
Should be a warm favourite, correct?
She's, to be fair, she's only had 4 runs in her life. 3 of them are listed. She won a listed bumper and 2 listed hurdles. And she had a bit of a grubby scope after she won her first race at Newbury, and then came back at Exeter the other day in, I think, quite a competitive. I mean, Paul will tell me, I think, were you second, Paul? Yeah? Third. I think that was a respectable race, and she was very impressive. She's done nothing wrong. She stays, she gallops, she jumps, I think. It's possible we run another one, and there was quite a nice filly we had that won at Newbury on Friday. She's only a 4-year-old. She might. I did enter her, and it's possible she'd come into it as well. But Lucia'd have to be our best chance. Yes, Lucia.
And this is presumably the easiest option for her because quite a few people in the chat would like to see her in the Supreme.
Yeah, the only person who wants her in the Supreme is Nico. And I mean, he got straight off her at Exeter and said Supreme. I'm a wimp. I mean, it's the same as the Gold Cup, sort of Ryanair. It's the same as that. You'd rather win one and get beaten and finish second in another. It's very simple. A winner here means everything to everybody. And I think while you're at it, yes, she'd get £7 if she was in the Supreme. And that's another factor really for running Marie's Rock. Coming out of the mares and taking on the boys, she's going to get £7 from them. And that is it's a big incentive. But here, she does look the mare that they might have to beat. And I'd very much stick to that.
It must be hard for you guys always because you get the public being like, we want to see these horses and these races just to make those races a better spectacle. Yet you're really.
But as Stu said earlier on, it all comes down to once they put these mares races in and the intermediate races in, then it was bound to create this sort of issue as they should all be actually running against each other. And we'll have a 2-day festival. And instead of having a Willie Mullins Dublin festival, we'll have a Irish Cheltenham festival.
Well, Willie Mullins wouldn't get it all his own way if we had a couple of more cross-channel competition at Leopardstown, which we'd love to see.
We're trying to win at Cheltenham, not Dublin.
Here there's more money in Dublin, but look, Lucia for me is the nap of the day. She's a very good filly, and somebody else agrees. Ashrow Diamond is quite a good filly. She won the bumper at Aintree last year. Night and Day is a very well-bred mare, Willie Mullins as well. She was good in her maiden, but she's quite inexperienced. Lot of Joy won the Swedish St. Ledger and is now running at Cheltenham. Interesting filly by Camelot, very well-bred, sister to Sonny Boy Liston, who won an Irish St. Ledger. And Princess Zoe, the Cadran winner, who's second in an Ascot Gold Cup, and she's running here as well. She won her maiden, but she wasn't all that impressive. And I don't know if she was a natural over her hurdles either. For me, Lucia wins. My each way bet in this race is Jatara, filly for Jessica Harrington. She also is very well bred from the family of the champion hurdle winner Jeski. She's yet to win a race, but she was second to High Definition in her maiden hurdle, having got completely blown out of it at the first couple of hurdles by that horse who was jumping erratically to his right. And she's been placed again since behind Ashrow Diamond. So I think she's an each way bet at big odds.
Okay, and any other hot selections for the day and other races that we haven't talked about?
The Plate is the only other day, and if I was to go for that big handicap, there's a horse called So Scottish at the top of the market with the colours of JP McManus in the name of Emmett Mullins, and that frightens me more than Charles Burns in the Stairs hurdle, if I'm honest.
Okay, good, thank you. And then here's a question I can answer. Paul Lambden saying, Francesca, can you tell me a bit more about Old Gold Racing? Easy. Basically, it's just a good place to come and enjoy the benefits of owning a racehorse for a fraction of the cost. So there's a really lovely community of everyone who gets involved with these horses, and like I said, it doesn't cost the earth to become involved, and you get some great days out at the races, and the horses are going well at the moment, including some recent winners such as Apple away at the weekend. So if you're not involved already, please do get involved. Right, so we are doing well. We're now going to move on to Friday, the final day.
Before we do move on, could we just, I think one of the best bets of the meeting, not very long prize, Stumptown. I think that'll win the amateur race on the last race on Thursday.
Why?
Because it won very easily at Sandown, and the second horse won today very easily.
Did it?
Yes.
And Barry O'Neill is going to ride as well, so that's another.
Barry O'Neill knows what he's doing.
Very good rider.
Good. Are you known for your tipping skills, Skew?
Not usually. I've never, you asked about coming to these things. I've never been asked back at one yet. So.
Very good.
Except the one I run myself. I invite that myself back to one, but apart from that, I'd never get invited back.
We'll invite you back. Okay, let's move on. Friday, starting with the Triumph Hurdle, and let me just get my little cheat sheet up here. Who's got what? Paul, have you got a couple in there?
No, Affordale runs in the Boodles, and Rare Middleton will go somewhere else.
Okay.
So nothing.
Nothing. Nikki, nothing.
Ireland.
Ireland. So Jane, which one?
It's unfortunate that Ireland is French bread, black bread. 6 of the past 8 winners of the Triumph have began their careers in France, and it looks like it's Willie Mullins' race to lose. Lossiemouth had a near perfect record heading into the Dublin Racing Festival, but Look and Running was not on her side. She had a complete disaster, and she still nearly managed to gather in Gala Marceau on the run to the line. She's rated 139. Gala Marceau is a very keen running filly. I think Danny will stay on her. She's by Galloway, and she's very quick filly, but she's her own worst enemy, and I wonder, will the monster of Cheltenham get to her brain? I think Blood Destiny is the least exposed, and he's possibly the best horse in the race, but I wonder, does he have enough experience? He's also a very keen running horse. It's not going to be an easy decision for Paul Townend to choose between Lossiemouth and him. Comfort Zone is for Joseph O'Brien. He beat Scriptwriter, who Milton Harris is talking very positively about over there, but if Comfort Zone can beat him, Comfort Zone wouldn't get near Lossiemouth or Blood Destiny here. So it's between the top 2. I'm staying with the mare because ratings tell me if she's getting £7, she should have the advantage. And she's also rock solid mentality, which means a lot in a race like the Triumph.
Any other thoughts on the Triumph? No? Moving on. Moving on to the Albert Bartlett. Miss Allen doesn't go here. Paul, have you got one?
Yeah, I actually run quite a nice horse, and he's got a big price. Stay Away Faye. On his point to point in Ireland, also beat in his point to point. I think is quite a short price in this name, Montestar. He came over, won at Newbury, was second at Doncaster. It's been unlucky that day. He's just an improving young horse who loved the race and could run well at a big price.
And Lucinda, have you got a few potentially in it?
We've got some entries, but I don't think they'll go, will they?
No.
Yeah.
No. Easy enough. None for Nikki.
No, very quiet.
Okay. Jane, selection?
Nikki only deals in 2-milers, you see. You know, these people only deal in very fast horse. This is the potato race, apparently. It's a wide open race, and we're going to have a big field. Corbett's Cross, who's been in the news lately, is top of the market. I don't even know if he's going to run, because his last win was over 2 miles, and I bet against him even turning up, if I'm honest. Embassy Gardens is a grand horse. I don't think he's maybe fits the bill, because an Albert Bartlett horse is typically a horse that's ran plenty, has plenty of experience, is kind of gut hardened, if you know what I mean. And I think a horse like 3-card Bragg would fit into that bracket. For the McNeil family and Gordon Elliott, he stays very well. He's behind the bridle. Adrian Heskin knows him well. He's my kind of idea of the winner. Hidden Valley Lake was beaten at Clonmel last time, but I was actually at Clonmel. It was a rotten day on ground that was so drying and sticky, and he had to make the running. And Monty Starr, his stablemate, beat him. I think he will turn that form around. At big odds each way, shout maybe a horse like Sandor Clegane for Paul Nolan. I think he might be overpriced come the day, because the juggernaut of punters will just get behind the familiar names like Mullins, Henderson and Nichols. I think Sandor Clegane might be placed each way, but for me, I think 3-card Bragg is my selection in a race that often throws up. I remember Rachel Blackmore had her first winner at the Cheltenham Festival in this race on a horse that was around 66-1, a horse called Manila Indo, a horse that would go on to win the Gold Cup, and he beat Allaho. So it's a race that throws up some surprises.
Okay, so often can give good clues afterwards, but not very easy to analyze beforehand. Wide open, maybe one for a trip to the Guinness Village, because it doesn't look very, very easy to find the winner. Okay, let's move on to the big one of the week, the Cheltenham Gold Cup. And we're going to do something a little bit different here, which I'm sure you've all read your running orders and you'll be aware of. I think we want each panel member to have 60 seconds to make their case for who they think will win the race and why. And hang on, I need to get my little timer here, see how succinct everybody is.
You better start with the people who have actually runners in the race now. That'll be the right place to start.
All right, who's in charge here? What's going on? I was going to start with you. No, right, let me get my timer ready whilst everybody can have a look at the field there. Jane, just run us through briefly.
Yes, of course, the High Senior we'll hear a lot more about. Nikki can tell us about Angel's Breath. Plutar, the highest rated horse in the race, last year's winner. He could be brilliant, but we haven't seen him since he pulled up in the Betfair Chase. Paul can tell us about Brave Man's Game. Capadano put up as an each way shout after getting beaten last time by Willie Mullins. Conflated, definitely going to run here. The Mounted Davy Russell. Cool Cody, age of 12, I don't know. Eldorado Allen, not so sure. And Violin runs in the Ryanair. Franco Deport probably doesn't run here. Fury Road runs in the Ryanair. Gala, I think, might run in the Ryanair. Galopin Deschamps is your favourite. Galvin runs in the cross country. Huey could be the best story of the race. Manila Indo, never out of the first two in Cheltenham in 4 starts. Noble Yates would be the first Ancient Grand National winner to win the Gold Cup after winning the Ancient Grand National. Protectorat, possibly the forgotten horse in the race. Royal Pugai will stay all day. Shishkin runs in the Ryanair and should win that. Sounds Russian runs here. Statler runs here. The Mounted Patrick Mullins. And the Real Whacker is my fancy for the Brown Advisory.
Okay, so just out of 10, quickly, how good a Gold Cup do we have here?
I think it's a 9. It's a deep race. We're going to have a big field.
Okay, right. Well, let's start with Paul Nicholls. You have 1 minute to make your case and why, starting now.
Well, I think the horses have made a case for himself, really. This year, he's won the Charlie Hall really well. Very impressive at Kempton. King George winners win the Gold Cup. He's definitely physically improving, and I think he's probably the best shape we've ever had him. He's only rated £3 lower than the favourite. You could argue, did the favourite achieve any more when he won at Leopardstown than we did when we won the King George? So, that hard race to win, but I think he'll run well. He ran well when he ran in the Ballymore. Track won't be a bother to him. He jumps really nicely. He's got plenty of pace, so won't be sat behind the bridles, scrubbing along. He'll get a nice posse. If he's good enough, he'll go very close.
Great. Very succinct, under 60 seconds. Well done. We are going to have a poll after this as well. So everybody listen up and we'll see who's the most convincing. So obviously Paul was talking about Brave Man's Game there. Nikki, hang on. Help me out here. Who have you got? Nothing. Okay, right. Well, even better then. Give us your selection and tell us why. Have you got one?
That's horrible.
You ready? Steady, go.
Well, the only horse I know anything about was Angel's Breath. I mean, this is an extraordinary one. He's a very, very good horse. Unfortunately, he severed his tendons seriously badly on his third chase start. He was favourite for the RSA 3 years ago. He did come back in. I didn't think he'd stand training, so Di's taken him home and he's been trained from there. They've got him back on a race course, but that's a long one. As far as England's concerned, ahoy, why not? I think we've got two good chances on the panel and I'm going to be supporting them both.
Okay. Well then,
I mean, I'd love them both to win. Either to win. They're two very good horses. I think they've done brilliantly to get a Hoyt-Senior back to where he is. I'd love to see him win. It would be great. And Brave Man's Game, he does look the obvious sort of one. That King George is a King George, and I don't think that if you win round one track, it doesn't make a lot of difference.
Cut you off there. We've gone over time, but
okay.
Good selections there. But let's hear from Lucinda about Ahoy Senor.
Well, actually, I'm going to hand over to Scoo. What a
no. Well, we've heard loads from him. You give us the case.
No, Scoo's been sitting here practicing it. Ready?
I think I very much respect Paul's horse, Brave Man's Game. If Long Press was in this, I'd be very frightened of him. Brave Man's Game and Long Press, I think, in some ways have gone under the radar because of the Irish power. It gives me hope that Hoyt-Senior can be competitive in a race like this. So he's very well. I compare him to some sort of batsman that would go out, either make 10 in the first over and be out, or he's still there at tea time at 350. He wears his heart on his sleeve. Obviously, in a race like this, he has to get his jumping aptitude right. But I do really respect Brave Man's Game.
Thank you very much. I think Ahoy Senor, like Brave Man's Game, would both be real crowd favourites. Jane, go.
Yeah, look, I'm a Galloping Deschamps fan because I think he has brilliance. I was on A Plus Tard last year when he created history, but it's just the vibes over here are silent, and usually when they're silent, they're not great. He's on ratings the best horse in the race and a marvellous horse at that. Conflated is talented but shouldn't be good enough. Noble Yates is a brilliant horse. We'll have cheek pieces back on and Sean Bowen riding him. There'll be a lot of pace on here, and I can see Manila Indo and a few of them pushing the pace, like the Royal Pagaya as well. Ahoy Senor, I thought, put up a Denman-esque performance to just be second at last year's festival, given how he jumped and raced. If he does things professionally, he has a huge engine. He just needs to put it all together on the day. And I just think the simplest horse in the race, and the horse that has shown he has ample ability, is Galloping Deschamps.
Okay, Galloping Deschamps for you. Nicely done. 3 seconds to go. Congratulations. Great timing, everybody. Oh, hang on. Oh, cancel. There we go. All right. Can we have the poll, please? I think Brave Man's Game's going to get a few ticks here because I got quite a lot of positivity from Paul's case there. I'm sure there'll be plenty for Ahoy Senor as well. So we'll let everybody have their votes.
Is there any merit, Paul Nichols, in the argument of what people are saying about this horse being better on a flat track, or is it complete crap?
Absolute crap. It just happens that the races he's been running in Kempton that happened to be flat. He ran very well in the Ballymore. He won at Chepstow. He won at Exeter. They're not flat tracks. Been no bother at all. Just you win a King George, I suppose they say you won a flat track. Never affected Cordo Star.
All right. Is this everyone's race of the week?
It has to be, doesn't it? I mean, what's the point of the whole game if it isn't the race of the week? So I think, you know, but stupidly, it's like people say, oh, Ahoy Senor should have run in the 3 mile stairs and anything. But this is the blue ribbon. This is what we want to do. It's why we do it. So yeah, it's the race of the season.
I think I was one of those stupid people at the start of the season, but I just didn't think he jumped well enough.
No,
Here we are after winning the Cotswold Chase.
No, all I'm saying, I didn't mean it in any.
No, I totally get what you mean. I just think that
it is the race of the season. It's what we do. It's why we stick our head above the parapet. It's why we get up on a frosty, goldy morning. That's why we go to the sales, is hopefully the one that Paul or Nicky has missed. We bid for 17,000. Oh, it's a Gold Cup horse, you know, so that's what we do it for.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning as well. We're going to end up with one of the biggest fields of the last decade or more, and each one is, bar Yates, who has 2 runners. Each of them are by different sires, and they cost everything from 850 quid is what Hewitt cost after he ran point points, up to a couple of $100,000 or whatever some of those French bred horses cost. But for your syndicate who go to the sales to invest in horses to race, you don't have to worry about fashion, and you can buy a horse by Timos, who's by Sholokov, and you could get a Gallop in the Shop who has no black type on his page. So
quick question while we wait for the result of the poll. You were mentioning, I think it was the Triumph, about how they were all French bred. Why do we not see more French raiders? Is it because they all just get sold to Irish and English interests and they can make more money that way?
Basically, if the best racing is at 3 and 4 in France, and they're usually acquired between then and now. So that's probably why.
Okay.
Even though your British trainer Tom George has got the best horse in France at the moment in Il Est Français, and wouldn't it be great to see him bring one over from France to win at next year's Cheltenham Festival?
Yeah, well, that's his son, right? He's now training.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Amanda Zetterholm in partnership. So, well done, Paul. Very good case made for Brave Man's Game there.
Another Gold Cup, going back to ditch it. Well done.
If it was only that easy.
You won the game of opinions here with the polls. 36% Brave Man's Game, 22% Galopin des Champs, 19 Ahoy Senor, Noble Yates, last year's Grand National winner, 8%, and then less for the others. But that's exciting that everybody's thinking it's going to be a good race and plenty of chances, and it's looking relatively open, isn't it? There's Chase. Shall we finish with that one? Jane, will you set it up?
We won't spend too long on it. It's going to be quite a small field, and Allegory Devassi is 2 from 2 over fences from what we've seen. He started her off, Willie Mullins, in a grade 2 at Cork, and she followed up in another grade 2 against the Geldings at Limerick. She looks potentially a superstar, but we haven't seen her enough to know. But we do know she beat a mare called Brandy Love over hurdles. She showed extreme ability, and she never got to last year's Cheltenham Festival. And the fact that she's so lightly raced suggests she's fragile. I've seen her in the flesh. She's around 17 too. Let's hope she gets there. Impervious is a very good mare for Cullen Murphy. Great that Cullen has another good mare after having the likes of Vuller de Vedette and Brave Inca in the past. Ellie May, last year's winner, is likely to turn up. And if there's a forgotten horse in this race, it is Riviere de Tell, who was running up behind the likes of Fernie Hollow last year. She's had a procedure for kissing spines since her disappointing run in Carlisle, where she jumped like a camel. She won't be doing that again, but hopefully I think Allegory Devassi, for me, banker of the festival.
Very good. And so just broadly to kind of finish out the previews, any race that we've missed or any horses, any runners that we've missed or any selections, any naps, any hot tips for the week that anyone would like to put forward? Speak now or forever hold your peace. No?
I think the Hunter's Chase for me, David Christie got nabbed on the line last year by Billaway. I think he'll win it this year with Beausoleil. Barry O'Neill's going to ride. He's an 8-year-old and he's a young improving horse. And Gordon Elliott really wants to win. He always wants to win the Martin Pipe. And he's been running a horse called Imagine over 2 miles all season, which is an insufficient trip for him. He needs further. He's going to get further now on his handicap debut and he's going to run him in the Martin Pipe. And Imagine is the one for me.
Ed Seyfried's appeared. Ed, have you cooked dinner and eaten it in the time?
No, I haven't cooked dinner because we're not talking dinner. Apparently, we're not doing that. No, I haven't yet. I have got some chicken which I've been marinating for a bit, but it's marinating even better than normally, which is great. Guys, thank you very much. I've got 4 questions which I've sort of weeded through the reeds and willows from all the stuff that's come in. So I've got 4 questions, one for each of our guest panelists. The first one came from Keith Hickman, who was with us at Doncaster on Saturday, and he says to Lucinda and Scoo, he knows that Apple won't run at Cheltenham, but if you could run her in any race this season at Cheltenham, what would it have been?
The Albert Bartlett, that potato race that Nikki doesn't care too much for. Yeah, I mean, we couldn't run her in that and go to Doncaster, but it was, I think for a horse like her, she just seems to, as Scoo says, she doesn't get tired in 3 miles, sort of thing.
We had a horse, my friend Jamie and I, ages ago, which was going to run in the Alfred Bartlett, but then it was called Binge Drinker. It ended up with Paul Nicholls, and we took it on to Puncheston. Would Puncheston be on the cards for us?
I know. I think if she's done remarkably well, she probably. If she's fully with a big future, I think if we could win one more race for this season.
I'd quite like
we could go to Dubai, Japan, possibly.
Let's do them all. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you.
Sorry, I wouldn't rule out that the female novice at Aintree, because you'd get some airs allowance for that.
Yeah. Which we thought were 5, but listening to the conversations, it's 7.
It might be 7.
Nikki, one for you from a number of people that came up on quite a few times. Jamura going to run on Sunday at Warwick, do we think? This is our Mick Fitzgerald horse, current Mick Fitzgerald horse.
Yeah. No, all's going well. We'd like some rain. And then he's all ready to go. It'll be exciting.
It will be very exciting. Is Mick going to come and join us, do you think?
Sorry?
Do you think Mick will come and join us for the celebrations?
I don't know what Mick's doing. So I'm going to go and walk the course at Cheltenham and pot around there, and I might try and get back to Warwick on the way home. But no, he's in good form, and I say we are forecast something between now and then, whether it's snow or rain or what, and just a little bit of something would help. And I hope you go very well.
That's great to hear, because obviously we love working with Mick there. Speaking of runners that we've got in Cheltenham week but not at Cheltenham, Paul, little Dancing on the Edge update, Taunton on Monday?
Yeah, she's doing it tomorrow morning. She's fit and ready to go. 3 mile, 0 to 100. Ideal race for her.
We're excited about that. She's up for renewal quite soon, so it'd be lovely to see her somewhere near the front. It'd be great.
She was well the other day.
Well, I know. That was I had to double into it. Yeah, that was heart wrenching and heartbreaking. Jane, one that came up for you. What's your Cheltenham Yankee? What are your 4? What would you have in your Cheltenham Yankee?
Well, Shishkin and Constitution Hill are, you'd be disappointed if they didn't oblige, and to put further pressure on Nikki. I think Lucia going for the Mayor's Novice as well. I know Ireland won 6 of the 7 runnings of that, but I think we're not going to get it this year. And I do believe that Allegory Devasti is potentially the best mare Willie Mullins has run over fences, and exclusively with a chase campaign in mind. Everything he's had from Andy Power to Benny DeJoe, and all them, they might have ventured over fences once, but they always go back over hurdles, whereas this mare, I think she's going to announce herself. So they're my 4: Lucia, Allegory Devasti, Constitution Hill, and Shishkin.
I can hear everyone's pens scraping like
Thank
mad across the
you.
entire country. It's
Okay.
absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, no pressure, Nikki. One or two little other parish things before I thank everyone. Flick Matthews, you won the badges for Tuesday. So if you want to give the office a shout tomorrow, we'll tell you what we can do there. We were talking, I was giving ITV Racing a bit of a plug, and then Jane was talking about Racing TV. Actually, we've struck a lovely deal with Racing TV, and if you're a member of Old Gold Racing and you don't subscribe to Racing TV, you'll get a 50% discount on your first subscription. So if you don't know how to do that, just give us an email. Speaking of emails, we've got one going out on Tuesday which will have all the tips from this on. If you follow the social media, all the tips will be on that too. And Ben Merritt, who did the other Cheltenham preview with Paul and Francesca last week, will also be topping and tailing a tips sheet on Tuesday for you all. We've got another Zoom special for the Grand National with Cheska. You're such a star, thank you. With Mick Fitzgerald, and we're just talking to one or two other champion jockeys who might be in that. And I think that just really leads me to say thank you very much to JM Finn for sponsoring us, Edinburgh Gin for all these bottles that are littered around. Where are we? There we go. Someone did say, is Francesca drinking milk? And you can see it's not. It was some sort of very cold gin, wasn't it? I could see that. Team, probably my office will now be pinging me saying all the things I've forgotten to say, but I think that's all that's left to say is, Francesca, thank you very much for corralling and hosting our amazing guests, and for coming back all the way from India to do it. I half thought you might be sitting in Bangalore, doing it live from somewhere really exotic. But Jane Mangan, thank you very much for joining us. Paul Nichols, thank you very much for joining us. Very much looking forward to see you on Monday at Taunton. Skew and Lucinda, very much looking forward to seeing you on Tuesday at Cheltenham. And Nikki, thank you very, very much. Maybe see you at Warwick on Sunday. If anybody else has thought of anything else that I've forgotten, I don't think I have. Guys, thank you very, very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks,
Good night,
everyone. Thank you. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.